Right. I like the initial shot where it focuses on the character. It doesn't show his face, so it gives it a bit of air of mystery to to it all. The use of like the colouring that you've done on it is very effective, I think, for the convention that you're trying to like pull. It's very sort of 1940s, 1950s sort of detective type, and it works well. It works, the editing, the cuts, synchronised with the music that's been played, and the quick like mirror reflections work well, as like it sort of disorientates like people's minds, and that gives them a bit of the way the convention uses it. What is it? Like where it's always playing with your mind. It's like the sort of a drug, and it's like getting into your system, and you want to know what's going to happen at the end. That's probably the best.
Is there anything you say we could improve on? Any faults?
Not at the moment. No, not at the moment. It's quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. It was obviously it's like film noir, so yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
I don't really know what to say.
Did you like the match on action shots, like and
Yeah.
the quick cuts and stuff? Do you think that works well for what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything wrong? Anything you think we could improve on?
No.
No?
Not that I can think of.
I liked the opening of your video. I think you could improve on keeping the camera stable, as it was a bit shaky at the beginning. Apart from that, I enjoyed it and think it showed good conventions of a film noir.
From the first feedback, I couldn't really gather much to improve on, but I think one of the main things that came up was the shakiness of the camera, which we definitely look to improve upon when we started filming next time, and you can see that in a couple of the shots we reshot when the main character is getting out of the car, the smoothness of the footage, and especially in the last sequence where he goes in to find the dead person in the house. You can see how smooth the footage is then, and we directly took that on, and it definitely helps us to make the music video look more realistic in terms of a real media product.
Yeah, so one of the first few shots, there seemed to be a coat from the cameraman in there. While the actor was walking down the street, seemed to just catch into the shot. So just reshooting maybe might have been one issue. The other issue I picked out was a little bit of like time lapse, I'd say, on like the lip syncing. I don't think it was in time at some points. Other points it was. Other points seemed to be a little bit out, so just maybe get that sorted out and reshoot them. And then other than that, the overall picture of it was really good. It was. It showed the codes and conventions. You could see that the song was relating to what was being shown on the images, and it worked well together. Like the film noir, everything seemed to work well and just go hand in hand, really.
Thank you, Sam.
That's right.
I think the film maybe in some of the lip syncing bits, like Sam said, could do a bit of work. There was a tiny bit missing with the title section. Maybe it played for a little bit too long. So that definitely needs to be worked on.
I'm going to say too much lip syncing in the video, done for too many scenes. I think you can definitely cut some of that out, shoot some new footage, put something else in. Most of it was pretty spot on, nailed it on the head with the film noir. However, the title sequence is too plain, needs some footage in the background instead of a black screen. And I'd say, yeah, there is too much of the lip syncing. The car and the beginning scene in a studio type place needs to be cut. Too repetitive. Same for maybe the number plate sequences as well. But apart from that, I think it worked very well.
The key issue which stood out in the second lot of video feedback was the lip syncing time lapse, and that there was slight differences in how we'd synced it, and it was a bit out at some stages. This really worked for us because before we hadn't really picked up on it, and it showed us that obviously because it's your film you think nothing's wrong with it, but where the feedback actually helped us to identify that to like a larger extent and allowed us to fix the lip syncing, which eventually we did reshoot and then synced it perfectly. And then once we did that, we got a couple of people to check over it to make sure the lip syncing was on point. Another major issue from the second feedback that was pointed out was the time lapse from the title. On one of the first edits, we were a bit stuck with what to do for the title, but we put it in, but the font was pretty plain, which we were aware of, and then so we improved the font and made it the title sequence much shorter, so it doesn't bore the audience as much. And that again was another good factor that was pointed out to us, and we could then ask the people who had pointed it out to us in the first place if that was short enough or long enough. Another issue to do with lip syncing was that there was too many performance shots in terms of lip syncing. We took this into account, and when we looked over one of the final edits, we did actually realise how much lip syncing we had put in there. And due to the codes and conventions we were trying to follow away from, not like a rap music video, more like a film noir, we decided to take quite a lot of it out and replace it with reshot bits, and the final sequence where he goes into the house and finds the dead body, that was actually added in due to the amount of lip syncing which we took out. For the final piece of feedback, I put the video on Facebook and asked a couple of my friends to review it. I selected 3 of the comments I received to illustrate the kind of feedback we were getting. We had the classic sort of person, I like the film how it is, I like it. We had quite a lot of that, which is not really very helpful. But a couple of people had an issue which they pointed out, which was it needs to have a proper ending. Because unlike a normal rap video, we had more of a storyline base. People wanted to see an ending of somewhat to the story. We decided to take this into consideration, and after a couple of weeks planning, we filmed the final sequence, which only took a day, in where he walked in, discovered the dead body. This also worked really well because we're able to have the Cass is Dead, which is the artist's name, hanging on the dead body. Overall, the feedback has really helped us to bring our film further and more realistic in terms of it becoming a real media product. Without the feedback, I don't think our film would have been as professional, and there are certain little tiny adjustments which obviously we as media students don't see, but people externally who don't study media do see, and that's why it's really helpful. It's also really helpful to get a lot of different people's opinions that you don't know, because a lot of my friends will just try and be polite and say, oh yeah, I like that, whereas I think people you don't know will just point something out to you, which was quite helpful. It was also helpful to recognise what feedback's worth taking on and what's not, because you get quite a lot of people which don't really give you much in-depth feedback and just sort of garble on a bit about how they like it, which isn't that helpful. Really, you want is specific points which they think on needing improving.